Hello, Leo friends. Up today is your October 2025 Vedic Astrology forecast plus bonus tarot reading. We'll see what Exalted Jupiter is going to bring for you this month, Leo, as well as we're going to look at the full month of October, starting with the October 6th full moon and October 20th new moon, to give you a feeling for how the whole month of October unfolds for you. So, now let's get into Leo Vedic Astrology and Tarot for October 2025. Chapters are time-stamped in the description, and as always with collective readings, results are going to vary depending on your personal chart, so take what aligns and leave the rest behind. This October 2025 Vedic Astrology horoscope is for Leo rising, Leo moon, and Leo sun. Okay, Leo, we are starting your astrology looking at the chart for the October 6th full moon. And as you can see, this full moon is happening at 19 degrees Pisces, Revati. It's happening in your 8th house, Leo. So this full moon, and moon is conjunct Saturn, this full moon can really invite you to do some deeper kinds of meditations. If at all you have any spiritual practice around the full moon, this can go deep with this 8th house energy. 8th house is death, transformation. So, and it's a deep house. It's a very spiritual house, and Dusthana house. We'll get into that in a minute. So if you're doing any kind of spiritual practice for your full moon, practicing releasing things, then it could be, fear of death. It could be if there are any attachments to or disappointments. 8th house can also have to do with joint finances. So if you're dealing with some disappointments having to do with joint finances, joint resources, things of that nature, we'll get into that more a little bit later. But this full moon in the 8th house can definitely invite a deep meditative experience on releasing some fears that you have that are really deep-seated. Okay, so now we'll get more into the general reading. First of all, you've got Venus, the lovely benefic Venus is in your sign, Leo, in the 1st house, and this is quite nice. Venus in the 1st house, it ups your charisma factor. You may just find a great deal of enjoyment from your social life and from, the people around you, and you're more interested. This Venus in the 1st house is working with Jupiter in your 11th house. Now, Jupiter is going to move, both these planets will move toward the end of the month. But for the first part of October, you've got Jupiter, this benefic, expansive planet, on your house of business networks, social networks, older siblings, and you've got Venus on your 1st house of self and health. So these can really work to activate your social life and your wider networks of people. With Jupiter on the 11th house, you do maybe want to be mindful of loaning money to elder siblings, or, loaning money to people. You may feel that generosity, but, think it through. That's really the only thing to watch out for. Otherwise, this is really quite a nice activation of benefic Jupiter on your house of gains and social networks, and benefic Venus on your 1st house of self and health. Now, Leo, this is a longer cycle, right? You're dealing with Rahu Ketu over your 1-7 axis, and this is really a profound 18-month cycle for you. And you'll see Venus is pretty tightly conjunct K2 on your first house. Venus is at 27 degrees Leo, and K2 is at 24 degrees Leo. Now, K2 on the first house can be the undoing of the self. And Leo, you have a reputation of being a little egoic or arrogant sometimes, right? You know, Leo can sometimes get into my way or the highway, and your planet, the sun, which is a star, not a planet, and that's exactly the point. Everybody else is ruled by a planet. You are ruled by the sun. So Leo has some natural star quality. However, this Venus-Ketu conjunction over the first house can really help you, if you do have any problems with egoism or arrogance, this can really help you, be more egalitarian in your outlook and kind of allowing Ketu to eclipse any sort of egotism. And Venus adds love and grace to that. So this is a time where you're more able to relate to your near and dear ones as equals. So this is actually quite a lovely a lovely combination. And then with Rahu on the 7th house of relationships, again, it could be bringing relationships into your life. For Leos who are looking for love, Rahu could activate the 7th house in finding, partnerships, relationships. With Rahu on the 7th house, you do want to watch out for anyone who isn't what they appear to be. So any kind of get-rich-quick schemes or anything that sounds a bit shady or anybody that seems a bit shady, you want to watch that with Rahu on the 7th house. But otherwise, this is quite a nice beginning part of October, socially speaking, and being able to relate to people in a loving way and as equals. Now, with Sun in your 2nd house of finances, this is going to put your focus on your finances and your material resources. Sun in Virgo is, so you may be more detail oriented. I know, Leo, you're not necessarily, you're a big picture sort of a guy or gal, and maybe not, really detail oriented, but this Sun in Virgo is going to make you more detail-oriented, more analytical than usual, more careful about, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, as it were. And this could be somewhat frustrating because you have this opposition here where, Sun is catching Saturn's drishti, Saturn's gaze. So your planet, the Sun, your ruling planet, is putting your attention on, finances and material resources. And here's Saturn, the planet of limitations, in your 8th house of joint resources, joint finance. So you could find, Leo, that there are some frustrations with Saturn over the 8th house. And, this is bigger than just October. It's a, 2.5-year cycle. But during this time of Saturn over your 8th house, not the best time to look for loans or, any type of unearned income. There may be hang-ups, obstacles, frustrations with that. Saturn retrograde, do-overs. I don't know, some Leos, if you've been applying for a loan and you may be, doing that over or reapplying, this can just be a difficult time for joint finances and unearned income with Saturn in the 8th house. It's going to put some limitations on that. So what can you do? Your Lagna Lord, the Sun, is in the 2nd house, and with this Jupiter in your 11th house of gains, this is really a time to look to yourself. When it comes to your financial resources, really be dependent on yourself and don't really look at other people for financial resources at this time. Now, during the month of October, we've got this third house activation, and it's somewhat complex. You've got Mars and Mercury together in your third house. So with Mars in the third house, Leo, do watch out if there are any anger issues or boundary issues coming up with neighbors. You know, like I said, you know, mostly this is really good for relationships here, but specifically with, you know, neighbors and possibly siblings, younger siblings, there may be, you know, some anger issues coming up or boundary issues coming up with that third house activation. So if that's happening for you, Leo, really lean into Mercury, you know, keep your temper under control and lean into Mercury, which is the negotiator. And Mercury and Mars are both in Libra, which is this planet of balance. Mars doesn't particularly like being in Libra, but there is a lesson here that, you know, even the best warriors at times learn to negotiate. There are times when diplomacy and negotiation is going to serve you better. So definitely with this third house activation, with neighbors and siblings, younger siblings, lean into negotiation rather than confrontation or conflict. Okay. So now we're going to fast forward to the October 21st new moon. Okay, Leo, now we can see on October 21st, and I know I mentioned at the beginning of the video new moon being on October 20th, but I kind of learned the hard way about, you know, blindly following apps. So the app in my phone was a bit off when I actually entered the data. You can see here the new moon is occurring with Sun at 4 degrees of Libra and Moon also at 4 degrees Libra. We measure the exact new moon when the Sun and Moon are conjunct. So now, Leo, the end of the month has bringing some real shifts in energy for you. Jupiter has moved out of the 11th house, where it was the house of gains, and it has moved into your 12th house, which is the house of expenses. And Jupiter is exalted. Jupiter in Cancer is exalted. And this happens about every 12 years. Now, Jupiter in the 12th house. Okay, Leo, spiritually speaking, exalted Jupiter in your 12th house is really quite lovely on a spiritual level. If you're, you know, taking this karmic axis of having Ketu, you know, the slayer of ego, Ketu over your first house of self, and this exalted Jupiter in your 12th house of self-undoing, this can be quite nice for Leos on the spiritual path if you're actually welcoming ego death experiences which take you beyond your limited personal ego, which take you beyond selfishness and self-centeredness and open you up to universal consciousness. This is really quite lovely to have exalted Jupiter on your 12th house and Ketu on your first house. But when it comes to material, day-to-day life in the marketplace world, this can actually be quite difficult. Jupiter increases expenses when it's in the 12th house. So, you know, you've got Jupiter over here in your 12th house increasing expenses, and Venus now has moved into your second house. And so this is continuing the second house activation. It's changed a little bit. It's no longer the Sun activating your second house, but Venus is now activating your second house. And this could be a little bit frustrating. Venus in the second house is going to help by increasing income, so that's quite nice. If Venus is increasing your income and helping you make connections for investment or income, and yet you've got Jupiter over here increasing expenses. And the other thing, with Venus on the second house, you may want to invest in your business or, do investments. But again, you want to be really careful with this Jupiter in the 12th house. Really be careful about debt and having high expenses. Venus may encourage you to spend on luxury items, clothes, jewelry, home beautification. Venus will encourage spending in all those Venusian types of things. And so just really watch your budget and kind of err on the side of caution, whether it's investing in your business or simply, purchasing luxury items or beautiful things. Just, be wary of this 12th house Jupiter. Now, your third house is now super activated. Sun is there, Mars and Mercury. We already talked about Mars and Mercury, but Sun is really going to put your attention on your self-expression, and your self-expression in your day-to-day life, in your dealings with, neighbors, siblings, co-workers, all the people that you deal with in your everyday, day-to-day life. Sun is going to put a focus on your self-expression with those people. And we've got this nice Parivartana yoga happening. This is actually happening from October 8th to the 24th. So what is that? Venus is normally debilitated in Virgo. However, Venus is in Mercury's sign. Mercury is in Venus's sign, right? Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Libra is ruled by Venus. So this exchange between Venus and Mercury, this is called Parivartana Yoga, and this is going to cancel some of the Venus debilitation. So this elevates that. And what it also does is it makes a connection between the second and third houses. So again, with Venus in your second house and this Parivartana Yoga happening between second and third, in your day-to-day life, you may find some financial opportunities, friends, neighbors, younger siblings. They may bring some financial opportunities for you that are going to help your finances. And it's just a good time. We talked about, leaning into Mercury's lessons of negotiation rather than, Mars doing battle. And the Sun really puts emphasis on that. It puts your attention on that, Leo. So definitely with this third house activation going on, definitely this is a time for negotiation rather than confrontation. And for the new moon, spiritually speaking, new moon is when we plant the seeds that we would like to see blossom over the next 2 weeks or beyond, depending on what intentions you set. So with this new moon happening in your third house, this can be actually a time, not necessarily, a really deep earth-shaking thing like it, was in the 8th house, but setting intentions having to do with your day-to-day life, your day-to-day communication habits with, the people around you, the people you see every day, friends, neighbors, siblings, and just being able to plant the seeds of communicating with people in a respectful way and negotiating with them. And of course, keeping your boundaries, of course, but being able to do this in a more loving and open way. Okay, Leo, so that is going to wrap up your October 2025 Vedic astrology. And next up, we will have a look at your tarot reading. Okay, Leo, welcome to your October 2025 tarot reading. I am going to pick 3 cards for you. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, Leo, so first card to come up is the Ten of Cups, followed by 2 of Coins and Knight of Cups. So really, these are some lovely benefic cards for you, Leo. So first of all, with this 10 of Cups, I mean, this is just the blessings of the universe. I mean, this is a lovely card. So Leos, if you're in union or close with your family with this 10 of Cups, you're probably really enjoying your, your relationship, your family life. We talked about how that Ketu in the first house can really calm down some of the Leo egotism. So this is quite nice. It could be this, Ketu in your first house is actually opening your heart to more connection with your near and dear ones. So this is quite lovely. 10 is a completion, so you may be completing a phase. For example, if you recently got involved in a new relationship, this 10 could be the maturing of the relationship, right? As it passes from the so-called honeymoon phase into, relationships mature, and a good relationship, comes into this completion where both parties are, they've settled into the relationship. Now, the 2 of Wands, the 2 of Coins, Leo, you may be financially, you may be juggling some things. And we talked about, you have Saturn in your 8th house, and you have this, 2nd house of personal finances and 8th house of joint finances activated. So so you may be, juggling financially, and, for some Leos, it could be, a loan or joint finances that are delayed or not coming through. So that could cause you to juggle. But all in all, these are all really positive, benefic cards. So even if you are having to juggle, and if, some kind of, financing did not come through for you, or you're having to redo it, I wouldn't worry about it too much, Leo. It may be a juggle, but this is fine. And with this Knight of Cups, this ends on quite a positive note for you. You may have an offer, and again, Leos that are looking for love, this Knight of Cups could definitely bring some love into your life. For Leos that have children, this could be a nice relationship with your, especially not a really young child, but, some of your grown children, or, teenagers or grown children. One of your kids may even bring you an offer. Now, the one thing to watch out for, Leo, is we talked a little bit about that Rahu in your 7th house. So if someone's bringing you an offer that's too good to be true, Leo, of course, do your due diligence. And, that's the one thing to watch out for, this Knight of Cups with Rahu in your 7th house. Just, make sure if someone's bringing you an offer that the offer is really what it's presented as being. And same thing goes romantically. If this is a new romance coming into your life, just really, take some time. I like, sometimes passions, we run away with our passions, but just, take a step back and really check out that the person is, who they appear to be. That's really the only thing to watch out for with this Rahu in the 7th house and this Knight of Cups. And just speaking generally health-wise, excuse me, health-wise and spiritually, this Knight of Cups really invites you to go with the flow. So, your spiritual practices, you may find that they're happening spontaneously and it's just, in the flow, going with the flow. And same thing for your health. You may find that your health practices or any resolutions to health problems, things are just going with the flow. So all in all, Leo, very nice cards, very benefic cards. And let's just take a quick look at your numerology. So we have 10 and 2. So that's 12. And 12 is the Hanged Man card. So, and this is, I'm referencing, of course, Tarot's Major Arcana. So 12 as the Hanged Man card. Leo, I really feel like that may be speaking to the whole joint finances thing and Saturn in the 8th house. Otherwise, things should be progressing really nicely for you with all this, 2nd and 3rd house activation. That's a really quite nice forward movement, but it could be when it comes to joint finances that things are hung up and delayed. And so again, going back to this, how do you deal with the Hanged Man, right? It can be really frustrating. It's something you were counting on is delayed, or, this joint finance or money or settlement you were waiting, it's not coming through. Go with the flow. The Hanged Man ultimately is a card of surrender. Sometimes when things are hung up, it doesn't help to, beat your head against the wall or, try to make it happen. And in a deeper sense, from the old Tarot cards back in the, 1400s and 1500s, the Hanged Man spoke about betrayal. So if you're feeling frustrated about joint finances or, something of that nature with this 8th house and this Hanged Man, Leo, don't betray yourself, right? Leo, I know that inside you are very noble and you don't stoop to underhanded tactics or, that sort of thing. That's beneath you, Leo. So with this Hanged Man, it may test you and it may tempt you to, try to force your agenda, to push. You may even have, some temptation toward underhanded tactics or maybe, just being less than above board. So with this Hanged Man, it is a warning card. It really reminds you, Leo, stay true to yourself. Stay true to that inner nobility and, royalty that every Leo possesses that is truly noble in your aspirations and in your behavior. So Leo, that is your tarot reading for October 2025. And if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. It's a tiny, small little channel and every little bit helps. Wishing you the blessings of good health, peace, and prosperity for October 2025. Namaste.